The Darby Project is a veteran service organization that connects, educates, and empowers Ranger veterans to lead the way in their communities. My name is Bryce Mahoney. I've served in the military for 6.5 years, served with 3rd Ranger Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, United Nations Security Battalion, Joint Security Area, and Echo 51st Long Range Surveillance. I grew up in Virginia Beach, and after moving out of my parents' house after high school, I decided to join the Army in early 2001 and went through infantry basic training and airborne school, and then did Ranger Indoctrination program in August of 2001. Got to 3rd Battalion September 1st and was thrown pretty much right into it. I knew I was in the right place, starting at 3rd Battalion. And then we came out of the field, and I remember having my first staff duty experience on September 11th and shit hitting the fan. And I remember looking through the book like, this isn't in the manual. That made things real for me pretty quickly. We were out the door running pretty quick. Why did I get out? Well, I kind of had that determined before I even went in the military. I told myself that I wasn't going to do 20 years, and a couple of bad experiences in the military left a sour taste in my mouth, and that kind of solidified I think you're kind of done with this. So after my first enlistment with a year stop loss, I got out of the military. What was my transition like? It was easy at first. First couple months was basically me playing a lot of golf in Germany. And then we came back to the States, and I started working with my dad again, doing construction, and slowly but surely I could kind of notice something happening, or I was getting angrier, my fuse got shorter, just a lot of personal things going on in my life that were adding to the frustration and the anxiety, and it began to get tough, which led me to be even angrier and take it out on my wife and my friends and things like that. But it also made me kind of isolate myself away from everybody, because I didn't want a lot of people to kind of deal with this. I got some guidance from another Ranger buddy of mine that I should go talk to somebody. He had talked to the VA after getting shot, and he now at that point had a counselor that he went to like every other week, and was just able to yell at this guy, and he said it was the best thing that ever happened to him. And I remember just really wanting to be able to talk to somebody, and I went to the VA, and they made me do a mental health screening, and then they gave me clonazepam or whatever the medicine was that they wanted me to take, and kind of told me that they medicated first before they did any type of in-person counseling, which sounded really backwards to me. I ended up taking about half of the dose once, and it just made me so catatonic that I never took it again. And I called back to see if I could get more counseling, get some in-person counseling, and they told me, you need to fake a suicide and call the crisis hotline if you want to have in-person counseling. And I remember thinking at that point, like, well, it looks like I'm on my own in this. How did losing my Ranger brothers and that sense of community affect me? At first, I thought I'd be totally fine. We're ingrained from the very beginning to suck it up and to internalize and just live in the moment. Live in that suck and drink water and eat foot powder or whatever you want to say. Basically, all those phrases and slogans are out there to just tell us to internalize everything. Shut up. Just keep going. There's a great Thrasher picture of a skeleton or man looking in the mirror in his bathroom and his like skin's falling off and his skull is exposed, and just got a little phrase up top that says, "I'm fine." And that categorizes myself and what I think to be most of the special operations community. We have this invincible persona about us, but secretly inside, we're dying. You know, we try to mask it as much as possible, but without that brotherhood, without that camaraderie, we're slowly deflating as human beings. And it doesn't happen in the first day or month or year. It happens 3-4 years down the road when it was devastating to lose that type of camaraderie. It was having other people that just had that kind of drive and intensity that made you want to not only be the best example of yourself, but you wanted to beat them too. It was something I struggled with finding, and it was very hard to find that same camaraderie outside of the military. How did I overcome those hurdles? At first, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but it became very clear quickly that the answers that I sought for that solution were right in our Ranger creed. And it isn't until I instilled that discipline and lived the creed again that I started to turn that ship around. I began to realize at first with that the crisis hotline nonsense that I was on my own, but it wasn't a woe is me moment. It was, I have the opportunity to make or break this next moment, and what I do next could quite possibly determine the rest of my life. And I didn't take what I was feeling sitting down. And thankfully at the time, I had a buddy that was in Lurs with me come up to live there and work with me on my construction company. And we had toyed around with the idea of doing some long distance backpacking hikes in the Smokies. And so finally we just said, screw it, let's go do that. And ended up doing like 35 miles in the Smokies, and it sucked. I remember it sucked so bad during the trip, but the second we got back in the car, it was like, man, that was awesome. When are we gonna do that again? And that was like the aha moment of that shared suffering, how much that meant to me in the military, and how valuable it was to kind of get out of your own head and be able to just really cease life for a couple days out in the woods. And that started a kind of an annual backpacking trip that me and him would go on. And we invited another buddy of ours that we served with, and he came, and that had its own memories and great times. And it just really turned into this idea of what other outdoor activities can I do that I can get other veterans involved, and hopefully they fall in love with surfing or stand-up paddleboarding or hiking or biking or any of these outdoor activities that allows them to kind of get out of their own heads for a little while and focus what's right in front of them. So getting into outdoor activities was a big part of how I overcame kind of that struggle. Also joining a men's only workout group called F3, which stands for Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith. I equate a lot of my success to F3 and to getting back into nature with other veterans. I kind of label it as guys are getting out and they're disconnecting, they're isolating, and they're self-medicating. They're disconnecting because they've been a part of this really tight group that's operates at such a high spun up level that when they get out, especially if they don't connect with another Ranger community where they live, there's nobody else around them like that. So it's it becomes hard for them to associate with anybody, and rather than raise their hand and say anything about it, they just disconnect and either blame it on something else or just suck it up, suffer in silence. But after a while, they begin to isolate themselves from from their friends, from their wives, from their kids, and it just internalizes that anger and that fear and that anxiety even more. And just like we're taught to be, I feel like Rangers are taught to be professional drinkers in the military. They go back to what's common. They start to drown that fear and that anxiety, and they self-medicate themselves, or they go to the VA and they get these crazy mood-altering drugs because the VA doesn't want to deal with the mental aspect of kind of detuning these guys, so they just medicate them. And after a while, that medication wears off and you have to take more of it. And the alcohol, you got to drink a 6-pack, you got to drink a 12-pack. And they just bury themselves further and further in a hole. And I think one of the biggest things that we could do as a Ranger community is seek that community out, personally seek out those guys that might live where you go, where you plan on moving, and make that contact. So the Darby Project was started to help create a path and help guys find their azimuth as they transition from active duty to civilian life through community connection, resource allocation, and just experience. I think that's the biggest part of it, is Rangers hearing from other Rangers that have walked the same path that they have and seen the struggles that are out there, and can really enlighten that active duty Ranger of what they're about to get into. Because I think a lot of that frustration is guys really don't know what they're about to get into. And a lot of the people within the transition spectrum on active duty, what do they know? They haven't transitioned, or they got out of the military and went straight into a government job right back where they worked and didn't really experience a transition. So having Rangers able to share their stories and share their struggles, hopefully will continue to get guys to come out of the darkness and say, hey, I struggled with that too, and share that story so somebody else can hear, it's okay to reach out, It's okay to raise your hand and be like, hey, I need help on this. I'm not a subject matter expert in resume writing or finding jobs or talking to my wife. I need help here. And I think creating a educated Ranger community to receive those kind of requests is a very important part of it. Rangers talk to Rangers. That's a fact. And if we can bridge that gap and get them out of the darkness and get them back on their correct azimuth, then they will take that initiative over and use it to properly transition, or at least take charge of their transition and stay ahead of it versus become very reactionary when it doesn't work out for them. No, I would tell any Ranger, any veteran, if you're struggling, reach out to someone. Reach out to somebody you trust. Reach out to somebody you know. And if you don't, I'm easy to find. I'm all over social media. You can find me. You can connect with me at darbyproject.org or gallantfew.org. I will talk to you. I will connect you with who I think you need to be connected with. I will try to find somebody close to you. Just know that you're not alone out there. There is thousands of veterans. There are thousands of people out there willing to help you. I like to say that there is there are hundreds and thousands of people willing to help us paddle the rough waters of life. But it seems that most of us just have to be okay with letting other people in our boats to help paddle. That's what I would say to most veterans. Just be receptive to that help. Be ready to ask for it, and be humble to ask for it. There are plenty of people out there willing to help. You just got to let them. Yeah.